This panel discussion introduces the Journal for Advancing Sports Psychology and Research. Through facilitated discussions by the establishing editors, including myself, Amanda, and Mona, the student editorial board members of the journal will pull back the curtain on the operating infrastructure of the journal by providing key insights from their lived experiences being part of the development of the journal and its day-to-day operations. Students and faculty curious about the journal's operating infrastructure and opportunities to get involved with the journal are highly encouraged to view this recording. The larger vision of the student-centered journal is to expand the field of psychology across sport, exercise, and performance, and in so doing, provide students with a unique and also inspiring platform for both engaging and disseminating research scholarship. The mission of the Journal for Advancing Sports Psychology and Research is to give students and early career professionals opportunities to engage in all the publishing processes of an academic journal. Students have opportunities to submit their work as first authors, serve as peer reviewers, and get involved with the journal, receiving mentorship in their roles as editorial board members. The journal's operating infrastructure is indeed novel. First, only students are permitted to serve as the first authors of manuscripts. Later in the presentation, we will share an array of support resources to help students and faculty mentoring students successfully navigate the ins and outs of all that is involved in being a first author. Second, the journal is powered by Scholastica, a web-based software platform for managing academic journals that includes integrated peer review and open access publishing tools. In addition, all student peer reviewers must complete the Elsevier peer review training to serve as peer reviewers. Third, the editorial board is comprised of faculty editorial board members and students who are matched with the faculty to serve as junior counterparts, and together they carry out the day-to-day operations of the journal. Here, we'd like to introduce you to the journal's inaugural editorial board, which consists of 2 faculty members, including me and Mona as the establishing editors, along with master's and doctoral students from around the world, including 2 who recently graduated and are now early career professionals. Through panel discussion, next you'll have the opportunity to learn firsthand about the positions, responsibilities, opportunity benefits, and lessons learned from Thierry, Liam, Travis, Kylie, and Alex, who together with me and Mona comprise the inaugural editorial board. Hi, I'm Amanda. I'm the associate editor, and if all of the editorial board members here today could introduce themselves to the viewers, that would be a really great way for us to start so that they know who we are and what our roles are.
Hi there, my name is Liam. I'm a junior associate editor for Jasper. I'm also a second-year doctoral student at Utah State University.
Excellent.
Hi everyone, my name is Travis. I'm also a junior associate editor, and I am a second-year PhD student at Ohio State.
Hi, I'm Dr. Alex Oliver, and I've recently completed my PhD at Glasgow Caledonian University. I'm now a lecturer in applied psychology at Glasgow Caledonian University, and I'm an editorial board reviewer.
Hi, I'm Kylie. I'm also an editorial board reviewer, and I'm a third-year doctoral student, hopefully soon to be a doctoral candidate at Michigan State University.
Hi everyone, my name's Thierry, and I recently graduated from Laurentian University with my PhD, and I'm currently a lecturer at the University of Portsmouth, and I'm the junior editor-in-chief.
And hi, I'm Mona. I'm the editor-in-chief of Jasper.
Excellent, excellent. So Mona and I have a number of questions that we want to ask the panel here today to glean some insight into what your experiences have been being involved with the journal so far. So the first question that we have is, how has being involved sort of behind the curtains of the publication process with the journal, how has that altered your understanding and equally your perspective of publishing research? Kylie, do you want to start?
Yeah, I can go first. I think it's really kind of humanized the process for me. So recognizing all of the people that are talking and, you know, making decisions and evaluating your work when you submit it feels really scary sometimes when you're just a student submitting to a journal, or anybody submitting to a journal. So to me, I think it reminded me that it's also just people trying to do their best and trying to give you feedback on your work, and making sort of decisions for what's best for science.
Excellent, excellent. Alex?
Cool. Yeah, I'll come in now. So before joining the editorial board, my experience of the peer review system was very much as a submitter. And so again, kind of getting that look behind the curtain and kind of seeing, as Kyle was talking about, the people behind there. And again, we as people on an editorial board are just there to try and advance the field and really begin to build up an understanding of what we're looking at. And I guess just looking at, we as an editorial board want the best for the paper as well as the best for the journal. And it's just about kind of being able to kind of tease out making that publication that bit stronger.
Very cool.
Yeah, and I think too, related to what you both are saying, I have a lot more patience for the publication process and a lot more respect for how it goes, because before being on this side, it's kind of difficult to see what all goes on behind the curtain and really truly recognize what each person is doing. So being on this side gives me a lot more patience.
Great answer.
Yeah, adding to that, I agree with what everyone said. I think a real awareness and appreciation for the effort and work of editorial board members, as well as those kind of more managing editors or the people in charge of making sure that manuscripts are up to the standard in terms of adhering to APA standards and things along those lines. I think huge respect, huge awareness, huge appreciation for the work that they do. Also, something that I'd like to add there is kind of, we've all, especially me, kind of coming into this position, you see it in each journal, kind of the successful publication rates of each journal. And I thought, how is that even possible? Those kind of low 10%, 20% rates, kind of seeing the inner workings of a journal has certainly made me kind of understand that a whole lot better and what kind of goes into those rates. So that's just one thing.
That's really interesting because I think like the first 2 points that I had thought about kind of go with what the four of you had said about the different roles that everyone plays within the publication process, and then the importance of science communication. So not just doing research, but how to communicate results, findings. And then to the, I guess the acceptance rate, Liam, that you were saying, it's kind of opened my eyes to the different levels of what I think are the different levels of mentorship that students receive, and then how that impacts their initial immersion or submission and then navigation of the peer review process. I guess the only other point that it's kind of opened my eyes to is all of the work that goes on behind the scenes, as you guys were all saying, by everyone involved within an editorial board, you know, getting manuscripts from submission to publication. But it's also made me wonder, I think, in amazement at how much we've done in setting up a journal to kind of do that whole process. And it's made me wonder a little bit about what staffing levels are like at a mainstream publisher, and gives me hope that maybe this is an example of how publishing and the publishing, I guess, field could move towards a more equitable or sustainable publishing practice than what's in place right now.
Great responses. I'm thrilled to hear that, because we obviously don't know what you were going to say. It's super nice to see that the efforts that Amanda and I have put forth for you guys is getting you to see the other side of it in a very, very, I would say, growth mindset kind of way. So I think that's really cool. My second question, and that's kind of like I want to just tap into some of your roles that you guys have. So I would like you to think about and speak from the roles that you have on the editorial board. How has your involvement influenced the ways in which you develop and prepare your own research manuscripts? And I'm going to target that mainly for the editorial board reviewers and then associate editors, because you're the ones who are the most heavily involved in really delving deep into these manuscripts. So can we kind of like, who would like to start on that?
I can go ahead and take this one.
Cool.
So part of my role as a junior associate editor is inviting reviewers and collating their reviews to share with you and Thierry. And by doing that, I get the opportunity to see all kinds of different reviews and how people write their reviews, and being able to see their different styles of reviewing and the different things that they point out of manuscripts, whether it's the first submission, second, third, fourth submission, wherever it's at, is really insightful to see what scholars and so professionals and students, when I say scholars, point out. And recognizing that helps me with my own writing, because I'm able to kind of keep that in the back of my mind and think about what is a reviewer going to point out when I'm writing this. And thinking about that first rather than after I conduct the study is really helpful to make sure that I'm just conducting the most rigorous study that I possibly can. And it's also helping me become better at accepting feedback from others, because I see how people give feedback and I see what it's meant to be doing. It doesn't mean that getting feedback is super easy yet, because it's still such a personable thing, but it does definitely make it easier.
Yeah.
I can,
Well, so Kylie, before you go, the other thing that that I would say, adding on to Travis's comment, given that we work so closely together, and Liam and I as well, is sort of piggybacking off of what Liam and Terry said earlier, is that not only do you all get to see the quality of different manuscripts that come in, but now your eyes are wide open to the varying levels and the quality of the reviews that come in, right? And seeing sometimes the disparity in that, even just among professionals as well. Yeah. Kylie?
Yeah, I was gonna add to Travis's point. So as an editorial board reviewer, we don't get to see what other people are saying about papers. And so there definitely was some moments, I don't know if Alex feels the same, where as a reviewer, I'm like, this feels really obvious to me that this is a thing I should comment on. And I have no idea if that's just because of my perspective as a reviewer or not. And like, maybe I'm aligning with the other reviewers, I don't know. And so it's really forced me to hone, obviously, my critical eye with papers, but as a writer too, with my own papers, thinking about like, okay, I know that this makes sense to me, like how I'm phrasing this, how meeting the APA reporting standards. I feel like I check off those boxes, but thinking of like, what would a reviewer with a different perspective think of my alignment between my methods and my analysis and my results, and sort of cohesion across the paper. So I think that's been helpful for me. And like, after I get a good draft down, I can kind of almost flip that lens and think, if I were reviewing my own paper, what would I think is missing, or what would I think is disjointed, and kind of put a different hat on, because now I've seen how a lot of other people write papers. Not to say that any of them are right or wrong, it's just different. And so I think that's kind of opened my eyes to trying to write more to the masses as opposed to wanting just to tell my story, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. I think both of you really allude to the different sides of the publishing piece, and I think really, see the diversity in what happens behind the scenes, whether it's an author or reviewer. So I think that's really cool.
I think that the other thing that stands out is just the ability, the flexibility, right, and the nimbleness in your own writing to see it through different lenses, different roles, different perspectives, in order to identify where are the holes in your own writing and papers, and being able to essentially plug those holes in anticipation of what a reviewer or an associate editor might find in your own work, for sure, for sure. Excellent. Okay, so moving along, we would love to hear from one of each of you across the different editorial board positions in describing a challenge that you have experienced so far in your role and how you have either worked through it and figured it out, or you are currently working through that challenge right now.
I'm going to go first because I wanted to piggyback on what Travis and Kylie were saying to the last question. A little bit different, I guess, especially what Kylie was saying about, what do other reviewers saying? What are they saying? Am I right in saying this? Because when I came to this position, I had reviewed, I think, for 3 or 4 different journals. So I had that reviewer experience. And I think what was a challenge for me then is navigating the boundary between being an editor and a reviewer. Because I would see some reviews and be like, what is this person thinking? Like, that's not right at all. And even, I'd see some manuscripts and I, before even talking with Mona about it, I'd start reviewing it in my head, and then I'd have to say, no, stop. This is not what this is not my role right now. And it's been, just knowing when my input is needed or warranted, or I'm allowed to provide that input, and knowing when it's not my kind of role, when I'm overstepping, is something that I've had to learn how to navigate. And I think that's definitely particularly in relation to manuscripts that fall within like my realm of expertise. When manuscripts that come in that have, statistics in them, or very in-depth statistics, I don't mind passing those along because that's not my area of expertise. And I think as I continue, if I, join other editorial boards, I think that's something I'm going to have to navigate for the rest of my career, because I don't think that's ever going to go away. But I think the way that I've been working through it primarily is by just talking with Mona, going back and forth and saying, can I say this? Should I say this? What should we pass it along to the junior associate editors and the associate editor? And just getting that mentorship and guidance of, okay, this is what we're going to do with this one, and this is what we're not going to do. So I think that's going to kind of continue on for the rest of my career.
Yes, that's all I can say.
Yeah, I think mine very closely aligns with what you're saying, Terry. A challenge that I've struggled with kind of since the start of my tenure in my role as junior associate editor has been, under what circumstances should I, in my role, insert myself in terms of my feedback and my opinions into what I call the review conversation that's happening between the reviewer and the author, and then also how that plays into the standards of objectivity that the double-blind review process is trying to uphold. So that's something that I've really struggled with, and I think it's a very important part of this role and other higher up roles within journals, and something that we all need to learn with. And although each scholar kind of, I think, has different perspectives on that and where you draw the line in terms of how far you go with that, there's no right or wrong answer to it. And something that has really helped me, like Terry was saying, was just open and critical dialogue with your mentor about that issue. For me, that's been Amanda, having kind of really open and critical conversations about that, and how we should navigate that as we're collating reviews. So
yeah, I think, and to Liam's point, and even between Travis and I think one of the things that I enjoy most about it is that, like Liam just said, like I will have an opinion or a perspective in perhaps how we might handle something, and it sometimes is different than what Liam and Travis initially are thinking. And so we have that dialogue. And one of the things that I always try and encourage in the process of doing this is to push back. So if you really don't, you know, you don't think that my perspective is sound, or there are holes in it, or there are things that we're not thinking of, to feel free to come back and challenge my thinking as well. And ultimately, we know that we will arrive at some sort of consensus on the matter, but that's part of the learning process for everyone, for Mona and I as well, and the mentorship process too.
Absolutely, I would agree with that, and I love the frankness of your responses, and because to me that's a testament of you guys feeling comfortable with us to say that I disagree. And Dear and I have those conversations too, where it's like, no, I don't agree with you. I said, okay, and I understand why. And then we kind of go find the sometimes happy medium, sometimes it's the theory's way that goes forward, and sometimes it's mine. But I love the frankness of your ability to have those, what I would call tough conversations in some ways, because I think that prepares you for academia really well. We haven't heard from the editorial board reviewers on this, so anybody want to chip in?
Probably kind of based on what you're talking about, kind of conversations between yourselves, but the internal dialogue I have with myself as a reviewer, and kind of overcoming almost a sense of imposter syndrome, because suddenly I'm this gatekeeper of knowledge, responsible and accountable to whether or not a paper may be published in our journal. And there's been a paper or two that I've kind of questioned, kind of maybe the methodology used, or maybe the analysis maybe hasn't quite answered the question the author has set in the most effective way. And it's being able to believe in myself enough to actually use my knowledge, my expertise to kind of question this and say, well, if you made these changes, we might be able to take this manuscript further forward. And it's just believing in my own self, my own authority.
Yeah.
When you first get that paper, which you maybe question, it's your immediate reaction is, oh, maybe it's me that's not quite right. And the paper's right, but you have to take that step back and have that internal dialogue, and eventually you can kind of see, well, actually trust yourself and trust your own expertise, your own experience, and use that in your feedback to help improve the manuscript that's been submitted to our journal.
That's a very cool insight, Alex. And I think it's common for not just students, but early career, research as well. And I think one of the things that I think you all are doing really well is that you recognize what's the goal of your job as the editorial board reviewer. You recognize that my goal is to look at this and be the gatekeeper of the science, but equally not be a gatekeeper in a way that you are denouncing that science, but actually like, how can we make this better with the knowledge that I have? And I think that's a very, again, I'm using the word growth mindset, because you are really seeing these manuscripts from the lens of there is potential, but there are pieces that I as an outsider don't understand, and I need clarification before I can call it science. So I think that's a really, really cool, insightful way to approach it. Thanks for that. I'm going to ask you the next one, and this goes a little bit more into you as a person. It's like, describe one skill that comes to mind that being part of this editorial board and your service on the board has helped you to gain or hone in to make you better.
Can I take that one first? Because I want to build on Alex's thing about that internal dialogue. And the skill that I thought about was learning how to recognize what my strengths and limitations are, and then work towards making the most of my strengths, but also, developing my limitations, like developing those skills that I need to develop further within a group setting. And I found that interesting, because I think doing that only worked because I had to develop the skill to communicate across the different platforms that we use, the publishing platform, Microsoft Teams, Zoom, all these online platforms, because I feel like I've built relationships with each of you, but yet I've only met one of you in person. And so that, like, that's a very, you know, like unique, and I only met Mona 6 years ago, I think, for like 2 or 3 days. So
in Germany.
yeah, in Germany. So I mean, that's kind of a unique part, is that I'm developing my understanding and developing my skills in a group setting, but through like online communication and through learning how to be part of a group that doesn't meet in person. So it's kind of two skills, but they go hand in hand, I guess.
That's a really good point. I didn't think about that at first. My mind immediately jumped to something that some people might find kind of silly of a thought, but I think that I am improving my skills when it comes to literature searches, especially as it comes to inviting reviewers. It can be really tricky to try to find a reviewer. It can take a very long time to get somebody to agree to review a paper. And we have to be very creative and really dive into different areas of literature to find people who are experts in that particular field. And by doing so, I'm finding better strategies to search for literature in my own areas of interest.
Cool.
Yeah, I think the skill that I've crafted most during in my role in the editorial board is communication, and specifically written communication. I think it's very easy for most people to deliver desirable news to people, but it's exponentially more difficult to deliver undesirable news to people. And I think we don't get to practice that very much. And it makes it a lot more complex when you also need to include encouraging, instructional, and motivational aspects to those messages. So I think being able to deliver a message that includes all that information and successfully communicates that information to who you want to communicate it to is a real art, and it takes a lot of time. So I'm very thankful to have been able to craft that and hone that during my time. So.
I think that's great. I think you really highlighted that just writing the sandwich approach that we all learned about. It's not enough. Like, you know, it can't be the McDonald's hamburger. There needs to be more to it. You know, it's so I'm really pleased to recognize that from you, Liam.
I'll come in as well.
Okay.
This will sound a bit selfish again, kind of piggybacking on the idea of communication, but my own kind of written communication when I'm writing my own manuscripts, I think, has improved quite significantly since my time on the board. And I think I know more what editorial board reviewers will be looking for, and can be editors at journals, to make it more suited to that journal, because you really need to sell your manuscript, say this manuscript is at home at your journal because, and make sure you really tailor your communication to the journal you're submitting it to. And that's something I've kind of gained a lot more appreciation for, kind of a mission, the scope of journals, just by being on this editorial board. So it's been really insightful kind of process for me, and I think my written communication has improved quite significantly in the kind of 2 years I've been with you all.
Yeah, so one of the things that it sounds like I'm hearing you all say so far is that not only is there this like heavy intentionality as an author in preparing a manuscript, but sort of behind the scenes of, you know, behind the curtain of the journal, as Liam and Travis were talking about as well, there is such an intentionality in how that manuscript is handled. Everything from identifying reviewers to communicating or making a recommendation about that manuscript, and the different iterations that we even go through in drafting those communications before that communication becomes finalized and then gets moved forward behind the scenes.
Yeah, I think kind kind of building off of that, like the intentionality. I mean, obviously the first skill I thought of was reviewing papers. I would like to think I have gotten better at because I've gotten a lot of practice, which that is kind of fun to feel like it's not nearly as daunting of a task. And I feel like I've gotten pretty good at knowing sort of what's my internal checklist that I work through when I review paper. But I actually kind of thought back to all the work we did when we were creating the journal and like really getting off the ground. And then now seeing that in papers is, I feel like I had a little crash course and refresher on the importance of being detail oriented. Like it, I mean, I like to think that I kind of am that in general, but going all of our submission guidelines, like reviewing to the fine-tuned little details that we had to do as a group, and just seeing constantly like we could always find more. And I remember at some point being like, oh my God, like it's never going to be perfect. Like it's never going to be right. But then now I feel like having that, making the author handbook, like all of those small detail oriented things that we did, I've translated now to like, okay, we have these author guidelines and submission guidelines, and I will never be the person now who submits a manuscript without line numbers on the page or without following the heading structure, or like I notice those things more as a reviewer, which has made me do better at making sure that I'm checking those boxes when I'm writing papers or just, you know, functioning as an academic, because I see the importance. Like there's a reason those things were put into those guidelines. And so I think that's just helped me have an appreciation for being detail oriented, and a kind of a refresher that the small things matter.
They do, they absolutely do, right? So it sounds like across the board, one of the things that has happened over time is that everyone's craft has become all the more sharper in various different ways, for sure. Okay, so the final question that we wanted to ask was, as we sort of begin to bring the panel to a close, is to ask each of you in 7 words or less, what is the one message that you would like to impart to students and faculty who are watching today?
I'll go first because I've not been first yet. Okay, and I would just like to say that you have a valuable contribution to make. 7 words. There we go.
I'll go. Mine's kind of similar, I guess, but my 7 words are: science is hard, just keep trying.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah, I'd say I've thought about it a lot actually. I think it's a really good question. Be true to your professional and scientific convictions.
Oh.
That's 8 words, but tough.
I'll give you that one.
So he's pushing, towing the line there a little bit.
That's what we taught him to do, right? So, well done, Liam. All right.
Very good.
I would say this kind of goes off of some of the things that we've said before, but practice giving and receiving feedback.
Very good.
I couldn't stick with just one, so I kind of made it a mash. So mine was, it kind of goes to, I think it kind of culminates like a lot of what we've said, but ask questions, make connections, and be brave.
Yeah.
Very
good. I mean, if I were to, and I've loved hearing because I consider this as a feedback for us as well, what you've just responded in all of these questions, is that it sounds to me that Amanda and I have kind of achieved our goal in making you very competent, autonomous researchers in some ways, who are very, very aware of where your strengths are and where you can get better, and you continually want to get better. And it even sounds like, despite never meeting people in person, we've actually done it in a very sort of nurturing and cool environment, even though it's all sort of completely virtual. And now we got a new friend over there. I can see the tail. That's so cool.
This is Hippo, my roommate's dog. She said hi, everybody.
Hi. Well, that's good. I'm glad because we've had you in our meetings in the past too. So I think that's cool. But it sounds like really what we really aimed for to do was to create an environment that nurtures that opportunities for you guys to make mistake and get better. And in doing so, get you the competence and the confidence in saying, you know what, I can do this and I can be a great academic and independent in those decisions. So I mean, self-determination theory in its reality, I guess, working here, and it's really cool to see. And I think my final words at this point would be to say thank you for your honest contributions. And I'm saying that sometimes they're not always happy. Sometimes there's, things that are like, oh my God, you have to review this again. But thanks for your honest contributions. And thank you for having an open mind to join me and Amanda on this journey of creating a journal from complete scratch. And it was the goal of the students who came up with this initiative. That is, it is truly a student focused, student led. Students are involved in the process. And I think you guys have demonstrated that given an opportunity or given student a platform, you can produce something super cool. And I am extremely proud of each and every one of you, trusting us in our crazy endeavors, but equally what you've achieved in these past 2 years is absolutely remarkable, and you should never ever take that lightly. It's beyond what I think many people do in their career, and you've just done it in 2 years. So I'm just really grateful that you trusted us in that journey to guide you in this process.
Thanks, Mona.
Thank you. Thank you.
At Jasper, we have created several useful guides for authors, reviewers, and anyone who is interested in publishing their scientific work. Our author handbook contains all the information needed and relevant external links a student authors and their mentors will need to know before submitting their work to Jasper. Equally, our submission guidelines on Jasper website provide novice authors a comprehensive guide through the process of preparing your work to publication. Make sure to check out all the audiovisual and visual links we also have embedded on the website. At Jasper, we're also publishing invited narrative scholarship articles that are aimed to help students in their publishing endeavors. First one of these is written by Amanda and I as the establishing editors of Jasper and is focused on paying forward our publishing pearls of wisdom. Be sure to check out all these author resources. You can scan the QR code with your phone camera and that will take you straight to the source. Since Jasper involves students at all stages of the publishing process, we have also created some useful resources for student reviewers. If you have never reviewed a paper before, no problem. Jasper is a great place to start your reviewing experiences, so if you're interested in reviewing, please put yourself forward and let us know. Similar to authors, we have also created a reviewer handbook, which contains all the important information and relevant external links a reviewer, students and professionals alike, will need to know before reviewing for Jasper. Equally, our reviewer guidelines on Jasper website provide novice reviewers a comprehensive guide throughout the review process. We would also encourage any authors to review these guidelines, as that is how your work will be reviewed at Jasper. Make sure to check out all the audiovisual and visual links we have also embedded on this website. At Jasper, we also seize every opportunity to advance foundational knowledge. To ensure a consistent baseline, all of our student reviewers, and indeed all of our editorial board members, are required to complete a free peer review course by Elsevier. This has been found to be very useful, and we recommend taking that course even if you are a seasoned reviewer. Be sure to check out all of these reviewer resources. Scanning the QR code with your phone camera will take you straight to the source. As you can see from the panel discussion, another unique part of Jasper is its editorial board structure, where faculty and students work together. If you're interested in being part of this exciting adventure, be sure to check out our published resources to this effect. The editorial from our issue 1 provides a brief outline of what Jasper is and how it came about. In our first issue, we also have a historical narrative of Jasper's origins for those who are interested. For anyone who is interested in setting up a student-focused journal and truly understanding how we as an editorial board operate here at Jasper, our issue 1 also has an article outlining our mentoring model and position descriptions. The QR codes will take you straight to these 2 articles, and we encourage you to check them out. We hope you enjoyed the panel discussion and learning more about Jasper. We hope it provided you with an understanding of the publishing infrastructure of the Journal for Advancing Sports Psychology and Research. We also hope this understanding helps in the preparation of student-led manuscripts submitted to Jasper, as well as guiding you, both students and faculty, in your decision-making regarding becoming involved in Jasper's many service opportunities. Be sure to connect with us. You can visit our website, jasper.scholasticahq.com. You can email us at jasper@appliedsportspsych.org, or you can follow us on Twitter at jaspersportspsych. On behalf of all of us at Jasper, thank you for watching.